Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome everyone. Today we're going to be talking about Up in Smoke Part 8. Today we're going to be talking about the unsolved mystery of Susan Powell. Now, by August of 2011, the police would arrest Stephen Powell for all of the images that they had confiscated for his home. Even though he would not be arrested for having over 4,500 images of Susan taken without her knowledge, they would find thousands and thousands of more images of what he would take of the neighbors, which would include the neighbors' children that were 8 and 10 years old bathing. And next to these images would actually also be videos and images of Stephen not only nude, but also videos of him pleasuring himself to videos that he had actually taken of Susan. And they would arrest him and charge him not only for voyeurism, but even having images of a minor and child pornography. All together with everything that they had gotten from Stephen's home, they would sentence him to 5 years in prison. But that would not be the only thing the police would find. Prior to Stephen's arrest, Joshua's brother Michael would have a van that he would actually have scrapped at a scrapyard. And he would just do this out of nowhere while the police were doing the investigation trying to find Susan. But even more suspicious is Michael would even request for security camera footage at the actual scrapyard where his van was. So the police would take it upon themselves to do an investigation on this particular van. And what the police would find was very, very unsettling, as they would take the van and they would get these cadaver dogs to investigate inside the back of the van, and these cadaver dogs would be trained to see if there had actually in fact been a dead body in this van. And the cadaver dogs would actually show that there was evidence that a dead body had in fact been inside Michael's van. And considering the statement that Joshua's sons had made not only to the police but also to the babysitter, would make sense in the sense that they had told them that their mother was dead, and especially the drawing that one of the children had made that their mother wasn't in the trunk of a van. Now, also prior to this arrest, Stephen and Joshua had been going on the website and being more descriptive about Susan running off with a reporter. But they would also be more descriptive and say that she had in fact been starting a relationship and ran away with a reporter under the name Stephen Kirchner. And Stephen Kirchner was a reporter that had in fact gone missing, and no one had heard from him. But the only problem is, when he had went missing was a whole year before Susan had went missing. So this story obviously had no weight to it. Now, because of all of the evidence that they'd found at the Powell residence, and because of what Stephen had under his computer, and for the fact that Joshua was living with his father at the time, Child Protective Services would deem the place unhealthy living situations to live with Joshua. So they would actually take the children out of the home and place them in the care of Susan's parents, which was a really great thing for them, because if you remember, they had not been allowed to see their own grandchildren. And so this was just a really great thing for them, because now they could finally start building a relationship with their grandchildren on top of dealing with the loss of their daughter. Susan's parents would say that when the children were originally brought to their home, that the kids just really didn't act like children at all, and because of everything that had been going on, they were extremely numb and almost seemed very robotic. But luckily for them, over a period of time and the love and care that they would be giving the children, they would start acting more childlike and becoming more loving and acting like their old selves. And I really wish this is the part of the story where I just say that the kids start living with the Cox family and they just really help them move on from the loss of their mother, and that all of the Powell families that were guilty of what went on were finally arrested and put away for not only taking Susan from her children, but ultimately unaliving her. But unfortunately, this story does not have a happy ending. Now, while the kids were living with the Cox family, Joshua was doing everything in his power to get custody back of his children. And Child Protective Services would tell him that in order for him to have custody of his children, or at least have visitations, he would not have to be able to be living in his father's residence. So he would actually buy a house on 189th Street, and it said that he actually wouldn't even live there. He would just use it as a way to show Child Protective Services that he had a home. In fact, neighbors would say that how the home was, that they had no idea anyone lived there, because he was never there and there was no one ever at the house. And on February 5th, 2012, he would have a visitation with his sons, and the lady that would be taking the kids to Joshua's residence would be going to dropping them off. And it said that originally going there, that the kids were extremely excited. And they would be excited because Joshua would tell his kids that he had a big surprise for them. So when the lady would actually pull into the driveway to drop the kids off, the kids would jump out of the car and begin running into the house. And the woman supervising and chaperoning the visit would actually be following not far behind the children. And it said that as they would walk up to the door, Joshua would open the door, and as the kids would walk inside, he would quickly slam the door in her face. She would begin knocking on the door and asking for Joshua to open the door, but he just would not open the door. And it's there that she could still hear some screams coming from inside the house. More unsettling, she would smell gasoline from the outside of the door. With good reason, she would quickly call 911 and would tell the dispatcher that she was in fear that the children's lives were in danger. And if you listen to the actual 911 call, it's truly haunting, as you can just hear the desperation in the woman's voice as she was trying to explain to the dispatcher that she was not the mother of the children, but chaperoning the visit and what Joshua had actually done. The dispatcher would tell her that they would quickly call a police officer to check on everyone, but unfortunately it was too late. As shortly after the call was made, the house would start bursting into flames. So the police and the firefighter would fight desperately to put out the fire and to see if the children and Joshua were okay. But unfortunately, Joshua and the kids would not survive. Shortly after getting the kids, Joshua would try to kill both of his sons with a hatchet. And after he was done doing so, he would place a gas can inside between his legs, as he had put gasoline all through the house, and he would light the match. During the autopsy, the police would find that there was a lot of smoke in the lungs of the children, which would mean that they were actually alive as the house was burning, and these poor children were burnt alive.